You're listening to the Modern Life Mystic Woman podcast, hosted by Jen Neville and Taiha Lee.
Modern Life Mystic Woman started as a conversation about writing, dreaming, dating, magic, God, tarot, astrology, and our mutual passion for consciously creating both spiritually fulfilling and totally luxurious lifestyles.
We're all about living in alignment, being tapped in AF, and going all in on ascension. We're committed to intuition, inspiration, and creation.
We are the bold and the spiritual, and we're moving cosmic mountains together. Welcome back to another episode. I am so excited to chat about this topic today, about sexual energy, sexual boundaries, specifically being a spiritual woman. What are the boundaries that we have in our life? Sexual chi, how creativity and sexual energy are essentially the same, how we're channeling those. And really, the conversation around how to sort of like assert and withhold your sexual boundaries while being like a single spiritual woman, and really knowing what those are before you kind of get into a situation with a man, and how to articulate them in a graceful, confident way. That's that, and all the other things are what we're getting into in this show.
Yeah, nice juicy topic today.
It is juicy. This is a good one.
Should we start off by getting into, I guess, sexual chi? I think we should start off by talking about sexual chi. What is that? What necessarily is that? I feel like, what is that? How do you awaken it? How do you develop it? Or how do you kind of flow with it? I think me in particular, I've been doing a lot of work lately with my sacral chakra, just opening, unblocking, and kind of balancing that with the solar plexus, and just kind of, leaning into that sexual chi, that energy of, I don't know how to say, like the energy of sex or sexuality, or just embracing that energy of, because it can be such a powerful motivator, and it can be such a powerful like attraction force for attracting what it is you want into your life.
Yeah. And like paying attention to it and looking at it and having fun with it. And because it is such a magnetic energy, we want to make sure that we are attracting from like a clean, sacred sort of place in a way. So like, I think that's kind of what you mean with this like sexual chi, is like really knowing and understanding the power of it, and like practicing it with yourself. And because like literally essentially like what this is about is like sexual energy is like, it's what creates worlds, like it's literally what creates like babies and other human beings. And like this really is like life force itself. And so it's like a very important topic and a very like sacred energy that you really want to get in touch with yourself, I think, as a woman. And that's going to, when you can start doing that and start practicing that yourself, like you're able to like, and I think that's when you can start to like assert these sexual boundaries with men from a very confident place, because like you realize like how fucking potent and powerful your sexual is. And it's like, no, like this ain't for everybody.
No. Well, and I always joke, I have a sex sense. I call it my sixth sense, but then you titled it the sex sense, which I was like, oh my God, how have I not thought of that? It's like, I have this, it's like a sixth sense, but sex sense. And I can pinpoint, like, once I meet somebody, I can know right away if I'm going to be like sexually compatible with them, or this is kind of what I always thought it was. I was like, oh, this is my radar, like to know I'm going to be sexually compatible with this person. But now being more like spiritually experienced, I know that it's kind of that give and take vibe of, I know I can have that like sexually magical experience with this person because they're picking up what I'm putting down. And I feel like that's such a big thing. Like sometimes I feel like people, especially in their younger years, use sex as a way to fill something up or to feel something. And I feel like more times than not, it leaves you feeling depleted. But then you can have these experiences in which you are building up on each other's energy, and you're creating this like really powerful, energetic experience that is nourishing, that is feeding something within you. And I feel like my sex sense is more so determining, oh, this is what I'm gonna like. This is somebody who I can have this kind of transcendental experience with.
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah, I remember one of my friends had told me, she was like, sex isn't like how it is in the movies. Or she had made some comment about that, because she was like, you idealize sex too much. It's not how it is in the movies. And my initial reaction was, oh, how sad that, like, how sad that there's people who think that. Because I think, especially if you are really conscious of the energy, if you're really tapped into that energy, it can be, I don't know about like the movies, but it can be this, out of body experience, this like really energetically fulfilling experience.
Totally. And, it's funny just talking about all this creativity stuff as well.
Mhm.
And like being in that vein, it's like your sexual energy is self-expression. And like the more that you're exercising creativity and self-expression in the rest of your life, the more that you're going to feel confident being like sexually self-expressed with another, like with a person, even just like with yourself too.
Yeah. Well, and even that's kind of where I've been at, at the risk of getting personal. I feel like I've been very blocked off from intimate experiences with other people for a little while. And so I just noticed that that block isn't just in that mode with other people, but with myself too. Feeling sexually attracted to myself. I think that's first and foremost. I feel like we always talk about like, first you have to feel that way with yourself. And again, another topic we talk a lot about, all that fear of being seen. And I feel like, I had gotten my Reiki license a year or two ago, and I work with the chakras sometimes, and I really, this past couple of weeks, I've been like, let me work with this sacral chakra because I have some kind of blockage there. And I just noticed even working with it, and it's all about, even expression, like dancing and getting into movements that make me feel connected to that sexual energy. I've gotten the motivation to go work out, the motivation to look in the mirror and like, really feel myself, really vibe with myself again, unlocking that creativity. And I think that, you don't need another person to kind of unblock that.
Yeah.
Which is, I feel sometimes a lot of people get confused. It's like, oh, I haven't been with somebody in a long time. Let me just go get it out of the way. I feel like first you kind of have to, you're just going to set yourself up for a bad experience if you're not feeling that vibe with yourself.
Totally.
I think. Yeah.
And again, that's kind of like looking to someone else to give you the intimacy that you crave. But when you start giving yourself intimate experiences, it's like, then like how connected and deep you can get with yourself. And it's like, you're no longer going to be looking at these relationships in that surface level, superficial sort of way, because it's like, I can have more fun with myself, know?
Yeah. Or even just, getting to a point where you accept yourself and you are, not afraid of being seen in that connection, being seen on that sexual level. And I think that ties in with boundaries, honestly, because I feel like a lot of the things that I block off are because I have maybe boundary issues. I feel like that just came up. So that's something that I have to go look into.
Well, and I think that's the thing for so many people, right? And it's especially hard / important to know what your sexual boundaries are before you get into like bed with a man. Because have you ever, like, it's a really hard place to have the conversation, like when you're in bed with somebody, and obviously like men, you know, they, not to say that both people don't want it, but you know, generally men are like, all right. And it can, if you're not really confident in yourself and like asserting that boundary, then maybe you can get into a situation where you do something that you regret, or you just don't even let yourself go to that place and have that sexual expression because you don't know how to communicate.
Exactly. No, that's totally true. And I feel like just being comfortable in setting those boundaries, because it's like then you get into a situation in which you're like, oh, this isn't exactly what I thought of, and then it's a little too late, and you're feeling, not only do you steal that power from yourself, but you're kind of, I don't know how to communicate that because it's just new for me now, but I feel like even in real life I have struggles with maybe giving more than I should, or giving more of my energy than I should to certain situations. And I feel like that translates to, you know, sexual experiences as well. And that's maybe a big blockage. So I refrain from even putting myself in scenarios in which I feel that my boundaries are going to be tested.
Yeah.
Because I have weak boundaries, maybe. I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think like, I don't know, for me, the more that I've tapped in and realized how like we allow man to like access God like through our body.
Yeah.
Like literally, if you think of like your pussy as a portal to the divine, right? Like a man like wants to be like in your body, like because that's like the closest, you know, connection that, and if in like tantra, like the sexual energy kind of like goes like through like this like circle. And so like, you know, as women, we have to feel safe to open up our hearts. So like we need to like open up our heart, which kind of connects to him. And then if you think of like the phallic symbol of like his, you know, an erection going like into you and like thrusting up to your heart. And then it becomes this like cyclical sort of energy. And so I think for me, that's been like such a powerful foundation for looking at sex as this like truly sacred communion, that like this invitation that I am inviting a man to like access this like divine creative world through me. And it's like, that's a big, like that's a responsibility, that's a privilege, like it's personally, I don't feel like it's something to like take super nonchalant, you know?
Yeah, I would agree. But then in the terms of say one night stands, when is that acceptable? So you have like,
so I'm gonna say, okay, so like my rule of thumb, and I love Millionaire Matchmaker. What's her name? Oh, I really wish I knew her name. Do you watch that show?
I've watched, my mom loves it, but I haven't watched too much of it.
I freaking love her. And like rule number 1 is no sex before monogamy. Like that, she like preaches that off the rooftops. And so like, I don't know, I'm like, I just have always kind of made that my rule. And I'm just like, you know, and that's not to say when, you know, over 10 years ago when I was in like my early 20s, I definitely, you know, explored and let myself do that. But I mean, for where I am now, that's definitely my boundary. So,
which is interesting because for me, it's like, what if you're not into monogamy? Like, what if it's like, you're not looking to necessarily, what if you're trying to scratch an itch, you know? I mean, realistically.
Yeah.
Like, when is that acceptable? Because one of the words I floated around was like, maybe we have sexual soulmates. Maybe we have people in our lives that are just here to provide mind-blowing sex and
Yeah.
you know.
I guess what I would say, like, if someone was coming to me for that because that's what they wanted, I would be like, first of all, allow yourself to be challenged by the conversation that you're going to have with that man. Like, again, sexual energy is so potent that, like, especially if you're a super tapped in spiritual woman, you don't know who that man is sleeping with.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I would say under the most like ideal conditions, if you want to like express that sexual energy, but maybe you don't fully want to be in a relationship, like I would, again, and you're going to have it's like keeping the boundaries around your heart too, because like once a woman is sexually connected to a man, your heart is connected, whether you like it or not. You can pretend it's not, but I mean, in that case, I would like challenge myself to have the conversation and be like, I don't know, because I think like maybe it's like you're not in like a serious relationship, but you mutually decide you're not sleeping with other people during a container of time. I think that feels the most like.
Yeah. And I do feel, you know, I agree with the heart thing, and I'm not, you know, necessarily, I'm working on my own stuff right now, my own personal energy. So I'm not necessarily acting out in this, but you know, you have those moments where you're like, kind of my sex sense. Like I have a sex sense with some people where I'm like, wow, I feel this really strong sexual chemistry to the point where I'm like, I feel like the universe is telling me I should sleep with this person. But then at the same time, it's like, what's the boundary there? Kind of how you say, my take on that is I'm so strong in my own energy, but I do feel like I've done a lot of work to where I'm not really affected by other people's energies, like if they're sleeping with other people, but that person there, whatever's going on with them, because I did have that experience once where I did not feel my sex sense. I did not feel it with this person, and I did it anyways, and that really messed with my energy. It made me feel insecurities. It made me feel like, oh, just icky feelings, you know?
Yeah.
But I do feel like, you know, I have these inklings like with people, and it's like, when is it okay to act on that? And some of them obviously haven't been boyfriends, and they haven't been monogamy, but we kind of share this meaningful experience, and it's not that the love's not there, you know, but it's like the love just doesn't last long.
Yeah.
Or it does, but it's just kind of a more like an experience.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like, and just to get like super specific around like, I'll just say like what my boundaries are. And it's great because this feels very present. I've like had this conversation with a couple men in my life recently of just like really communicating where I'm at and like what I believe in. And, you know, so feel free to adopt or adjust, whatever. But like, personally, my thing is like, you can get like really sexy with like a hot high school, you know, makeout session. And for me, like that is a super turn on. And like basically what my boundaries are is like, I'm not going down on somebody or having intercourse with somebody unless I love them and I'm like in a relationship with them. And that's not even like using the word like sleep with somebody. Like I'll like sleep in the same bed with them. Like we'll have like a sleepover. We'll have this like steamy high school like makeout session and have a sleepover. And like it's great, you know? And I think like, again, giving yourself permission and also like having the confidence or yes, of course, like a man is gonna want all, you know,
Of course.
At one time, but it's like, if you actually do want to build a connection with somebody, like, I don't know, like you can kind of like savor this experience, you know, and you just like, I think for me and for women who, because I want you to think about like, and anyone who's listening, like think about all the times that you have gone too far sexually with a man and you really regretted it the next day and you didn't feel good about yourself. Like, you almost like need to think of that before you get into the situation, and know like that pain is not worth the fear you have around having the conversation of like, no, like, yeah, okay, maybe my top will come off, but like pants are staying on, you know, like that's like a good first makeout session rule for me. I feel good about.
Yeah, I would normally like to have the makeout session first, but see, but I never had kind of a promiscuous phase of my life. So I've always really stuck with my guns on the sex sense. So I never had that feeling of regret, but I've also like haven't been with that many people. But yeah, I get what you're saying. I get what you're saying about the savoring the connection, and really, if I were, and that's more of a testament to where I'm at in life, is like I'm still getting to know myself on certain levels to where I'm not ready to be, you know, emotionally intimate with somebody, I guess. So it's more so I'm craving that intimacy through I guess a more physical aspect. And that's kind of that juxtaposition of like, when is it okay to just satisfy that need?
Yeah.
But yeah, I always end up, I feel like you always get attached anyways, but I've kind of learned in those situations to enjoy the experience and enjoy those moments. I feel like I've always been more of a moment kind of person. So yeah, it's interesting.
Yeah.
But yeah, I can see where you're coming from, because yeah, if I were open to wanting to be emotionally available to somebody, then it might be different. Yeah. And I've been working on boundaries with myself. I've been working on not just, trying to move away from that surface type of relationship.
Yeah. And there is like biology to this too. Like it is like the 2 weeks following a woman sleeps with a man, biologically your body is like programmed to, I don't know if it's serotonin or whatever that like a love hormone is.
Yeah, it's the glow. And I think that's what it's that like sex glow.
But it's because
it is.
You're, especially for the first 2 weeks, because you're waiting for your period. So biologically, your body is like, am I pregnant? Am I pregnant? And like, so you're wired to like have deeper feelings for that person because,
for me, I feel like, especially if I have like a really great experience, I'm like glowing, and then I become more attractive to everybody else.
Right?
Yeah. So I'm just like, sometimes I crave that, but I've really learned how to do that on my own. Mm-hmm. Like sex myself up, I guess. And that doesn't even mean like, it doesn't have to be like self-pleasure. It can just be like, I'll go on a run and I'll listen to all sex music. Or I'll go on a walk and I get into like a really sexy vibe with myself, to where I just dip into that energy and I listen to stuff that kind of triggers that energy in me, to where, and then like kind of holding that, even kind of withholding from, the whole self-pleasuring thing, which I'm not telling people they have to. It's like that movie 40 Days and 40 Nights. Like sometimes when you let yourself just hold that energy, it kind of marinates, right? So that's my thing, is like, I like to have that energy, because for me, what's more attractive, everybody's motivated by sex. You could say people are motivated by money, but at their core, I think everybody's motivated by sex. Even money is motivated by like sex sells. And it's learning how to harness that energy, especially to being, even like the people that I'm friends with, the people that I work with, on some level, you have to be, I think, sexually attracted to them. No? There's something in you that's attracted to that person. So I kind of, for me, like working with that sexual chi, it's about that attraction factor.
Yeah, like, because it is magnetic.
Yeah, and kind of being that magnet for people to gravitate towards you, whether it's in love, whether it's in business. You know,
Mm-hmm.
people are attracted to that energy subconsciously. At your core, you're attracted to that energy.
Totally.
So it's like about embodying that, you know?
Yeah.
So I feel like that's something that I work with, and I know when I'm blocked because I'm in an energy of where, you know, yeah, I don't look in the mirror and see somebody who I would want to be with. So so it's like, why would somebody else feel that way? But if you kind of can navigate those feelings and kind of yeah, hold that energy, hold that space for that energy, I feel like it can be really, really powerful.
Yeah. Yeah. And for so many like women who are single right now, like
Yeah. Oh. Keep talking. Oh my God.
yeah, for so many single women right now, like practice cultivating that energy and like syncing up this creative sacral chakra energy, like with that sexual energy, and like play with it and move with it,
Yeah.
dance with it. And I love that you brought in the music, because you can tap into that so deeply with the music. And you know, and one of the things that we've been talking about is like, so often we can want to distract ourselves with a man and giving all of that sexual creative energy to another person.
Hmm.
And like, I think that's how we can like leak a lot of our energy.
Yeah.
And it's like, we've been talking about like, how can we refocus that and like put it into our business brand, this podcast, like
Yeah.
any creative project that you might be working on, like just really being discerning of like, how are you channeling that energy? And of course, like, you're gonna want to channel it to like a man, a partner, a mate, that
Yeah.
whatever. But know that you can kind of like direct it, you know, and like choose where you're putting it.
Yeah. No, you can. And it's like, you know, I had a situation in which I was trying to make something happen with somebody, and it didn't work out. So instead of being upset about it, I was like, okay, now I just have to like, this energy is pent up and this energy is here. So, and now I just have to redirect it into business and into creating. And I've been writing so much this week, and I've been doing all this stuff, and I've been like, you know, really channeled into that motivation energy, still being active, because I went through a long phase where I wasn't even active. I was sitting on the couch all day, or like staying home working, not going on walks. And I feel like even just opening that sacral chakra makes me want to go do things for myself. Like, oh, let's go run, like, let's go. And then it kind of just builds this energy of, oh, I feel good, I look good. I'm, you know, creating more, I've got all this energy, and then redirecting it, you know, because I
And it's
don't
some, sorry, finish.
yeah, or I just don't have to go dump it into some person who's not gonna return the energy.
Yeah. And it's like, the paradox is, that's what the masculine is attracted to, is our creative, and like they're not attracted when we're putting all of our energy like onto them. It's like
Yeah.
repels them. What they are attracted to is like our creative wild self-expression. And
Mm-hmm.
when we're, like you're saying, like, we have that more energy, and then we're being lit up because like we're being more active and more creative and like channeling in there, and then it's like, you know, it is has this magnetic effect on whatever, men, partners, clients, audience,
Yeah.
like
Mm-hmm.
money, all of those things. Like, when you're doing the things and being the person that's really lit up with that sexual creative energy, it's just like because people want that in their life.
Yeah, exactly. So that's what I mean by being attracted to it. Like, you can look at somebody, and it doesn't necessarily have to be like, oh, I want to like have sex with that person. It can just be like, there's something about that person. I call it like mojo. Like,
Mm.
I always joked in college, especially when I was playing golf and dating this guy who's a really good golfer. And I'd always joke with my friends. I was like, I just want to steal his mojo. I just
Mhm.
want to steal his mojo, like spend time with him and steal that mojo. And I really feel like on some level I did. He, I mean, I learned my lesson there though, because he did go play like really bad in an event. I was like, oh my God, I stole his mojo. I won one and he like lost his. I was like, oh no, I've
Oh my
stolen his
God.
mojo.
Oh,
And
that's
then of
so funny.
course he kind of had ghosted me at the time, or he had like disconnected from me
Hmm.
because he was playing so bad. And now, I mean, I think there were other reasons, but um it's kind of a testament to when you're seeking that energy through other people, you can deplete them and they will feel it, whether they're into that or not. They will feel it and they will block you out. So I was legitimately stealing his mojo and he was cutting off my supply.
Oh my God, that's so interesting. I'm so glad you brought that up because that's part of what I wanted to talk about, like in terms of our sexual boundaries, is like the feminine, the female orgasm is so fucking powerful.
Mhm.
And like that, our orgasm like is like a gift to man. I feel like, and that's really like the energy that I've been experiencing. And like when I'm like experiencing it, the way that they receive, like when you're really tapped in and they're receiving it, like it's like this electrical like transfer of energy, and you can have full body
Yeah.
orgasm without intercourse, without like, the
Hmm.
boundaries that like I communicated. And so like when you're doing that in like this sort of like very spiritual kind of like cosmic exchange, and you can see it that way, you are going to be so much more conscious of the men that you are giving that to. Because
Yeah.
think about like, how much time do we spend like working on ourselves? Like
Oh my God.
that's all like that's all I
That's
do.
all I do.
you know so it's like when I think of being that connected to somebody and literally channeling to them like my like most potent creative sexual
Yeah.
energy, like that is like literally they're drinking like the elixir of like
Yeah.
creation itself. And so like tying this together with your story is like,
Mhm.
yeah, being conscious of who you're giving that to, because you can take that from somebody
Yeah. Well,
as
and
well.
I do think men provide us with energy. I do think men, because it's that adoration, it's that feeling. So for me, I've learned like in my experiences now, I will, and I say it, it's a little bit graphic, but I'm like, you have to pump them up so that they pump you up. So
Totally.
it's like if I'm gonna like I will build if I'm gonna be in that experience with somebody, I will build them up. It's like about being like, I want this person to be built up. I want them to be full of energy because then it's like a cycle. They're going to
Mm-hmm.
give that back to me. So it's like, I have some friends that I always joke, I'm like, you're too mean. Like you say things, you're putting this person down. Of course, the sex is going to be bad. You're telling them like these terrible things. So it's like
Right.
being conscious of your own, even despite like having insecurities with yourself, like don't feed that to that person because then that's what you're going to get back.
Yeah.
And it's like if you're feeding this person up with like love and confidence and that just good shit, they're going to get that back to you.
Yeah.
And they're going to be really grateful, especially like, I mean, I don't want to hate on men, but they're so simple. You give them like a couple compliments and I feel like, or you really kind of are just there and present, and I feel they feel that energy. But
Yeah.
they also feel when they feel icky too. So
Mm-hmm.
it's like if you're constantly kind of channeling that insecurity of being like, like I just feel like there's a way you can talk to them and in order to make sure, yeah, your boundaries are being protected, but at the same time that you're also giving the energy to get it back.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think it's really interesting that whole concept because it is like a build the way if you've ever read the Celestine prophecies, like kind of how they talk about um it's like a building of energy. Like I'm giving you energy, you're giving me energy, you're giving me, that's like a healthy connection. But an unhealthy connection is one where it's like, I'm just taking from you. And on an energetic level, any human's going to feel that on a subconscious level. They're going to be like, wow, I feel so depleted, or I feel like shit about myself when I spend time with that person, or, you know,
Yeah,
like, who are you giving your power to?
totally.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, like, I feel like we have to talk about the whole birth control thing in this
Oh, yeah.
conversation, because this is such a big part of it. And, you know, we've discussed that before, but I think like when we are talking about creation energy, like you can be, no matter how cautious you are, there's still always that potential that there is a possibility of pregnancy. And again, if you're coming from this like very pure and clean state and very like conscious with your decisions, for me, that's part of a big part of the equation now being where I am in my life is like,
Yeah.
you know, not that I want to have babies tomorrow, but that's like the
Mhm.
path that I'm, you know, consciously kind of like creating and planning my like life and my family and union that I want to
Mhm.
have, and that's coming. And with that perceived potential that that is a possibility, like, and if you're in the same boat as maybe I'm describing myself, it's like, why would you even sleep with a man who you couldn't potentially see as like a great father?
Yeah, I agree with that.
And like, this became really clear to me when like it was about a year and a half ago and I had to take plan B, and it was a very traumatic experience for me. I have always been extremely cautious. Haven't been on birth control since I was like 18 years old. It made me
Yeah.
like so sick. So I'm like not into like synthetic shit, taking birth control, like all of that stuff, like not
Yeah.
interested, but extremely cautious, and had never been an issue. And then a year
Mhm.
and a half ago, something happened, and I ended up having 3 periods in 5 weeks,
Oh, yeah.
which was just, and I've always tracked my cycle. I'm very in the rhythm of like how I feel when, and like that shit fucked me up. And,
Well, yeah.
you know, and also, you know, I was in a relationship at the time, and being with somebody that, and like, just like, this is like a very vulnerable share, but like, I also want people to understand as I'm expressing this is like the true depth of like the conversation, you know, it's not really just
Mhm.
like this surface level thing. We're talking about like creation energy and like
Totally.
the potential, right? And I think that's just where like being really conscious and cautious of like, what is it that you want to put your body through, you know?
Yeah.
And these things, like, you know, women can preach all day long about like women's rights and all this stuff. And it's like, but that shit harms your body.
It does. It really does. I agree with that. I get the women's rights thing, and I get like each person's body is their own. You
Mhm.
can do with it what you will. But I will say I also am not a big fan of birth control, only because it blocks up. Um, and we kind of talked about this with like things like Adderall that kind of calcifies your pineal gland, which is your third eye, or what stimulates that supposed third eye chakra. Um, so it's all the stuff that desensitizes you. So you're taking birth control, you're shutting off that creation energy, that creation flow. And
Mhm.
I've been in the same boat where I've taken plan B and I got like 2 periods in like a month. Awful. And I have really set a boundary that I refuse to. So I'm obviously very careful to the point of, I do think that celibacy is the best practice.
Yeah.
Or even just how you say, like, I'm at an age where if I were to just on my own personal front, if I were to get pregnant, I would be having that baby. So
Yeah.
it's kind of one of those things where it's like, um, can I see myself having a child with this person? Like, would this be a person that I would risk that experience for? Also, is this like I won't take plan B again. Like, that is something I will not put through my body through. It's so bad for you. Like medically, it's terrible for you, but also it's kind of like how we're saying energetically, you're screwing with your body's chemicals. And I felt like shit like when I took plan B, I felt terrible because it's like inducing your body to make it feel like it's pregnant, I guess, or like forcing that period out. And it's like, my periods are already hell enough. I don't need 2 a month.
Yeah.
So it's like, yeah, I don't know. I think obviously everybody, that's a personal opinion. Everybody has their right to do whatever they want with their body. But this is just from kind of my spiritual perspective, what I feel. Obviously, you feel the same.
Yeah. You know, and that's part of where this like confident communication comes in, because it's like, how do you have that conversation with men when you're
Yeah.
dating? And like that's I've recently just had to do that, and it was like, it was a really good challenge, you know, and being able to articulate it in a way of like no, this doesn't mean like I'm like signing up to like get married and have babies with you tomorrow, but it's like if that potential were to happen, like the decision's already made, and like you need
Yeah.
to be on board the same, like on board as well. And it's like, for me, again, it's just like, not, if that man isn't willing to have that
Oh yeah.
conversation in that like that way, I think like, well then just like, you already know, like that's not like someone who's like a match to you. And like, and I think this is where like, being a spiritual woman, like we're calling in these very conscious men, you know,
Totally.
and it's almost like giving them the opportunity to show up for you, you know, because the more that you keep quiet and the more that you're not saying these things again, they can energetically sense that you're withholding your truth, which is a turnoff for them.
Mm-hmm.
And I've noticed like every time I've had to have this conversation, it's like they kind of like they're like, yeah, okay, like
Yeah,
it's
I mean, I the same. It's like you have that conversation, and I've been surprised at how I'm usually the more one who's afraid to communicate it, but then I'll communicate it and they'll be like, okay, totally. And I'll be like, wait, really? But
yeah,
I've had some friends of mine that have told me like they'll bring that conversation up to a man and the man will be like, well, I'm pro-choice. And I'm just like, oh yeah, I'd be like, no, well, my choice would be that this baby's gonna come out.
yeah, exactly.
This baby's like, I made a pact with myself. I was like, if I am out of college and, um, making money or able to support or whatever I'm doing in life, as long as I'm out of college, I was like, I'm keeping that baby. Like, I never luckily had an experience during college. And I at no point want to be insensitive to people who have had that experience, because, that's something that's very, personal, and it's your own thing. So I in no way am going to put myself in those shoes. But this is kind of the pact I made with myself that, I have a college degree. I can get a job if need be. I can do what it takes, but, that's something that I want. If God decides that it's my time to have a baby, then I guess we're having a baby. But like, I don't want to have a baby right now. So I think subconsciously I do block out some experiences because I'm like, I don't even want to put myself in that
Exactly.
situation, because I wouldn't want to have to deal with, you know, being pregnant or
Yeah.
having to be like, oh, am I having a baby now?
Yeah.
Or even having to think, because it would cross at this point in my life, like it would cross my mind. I would really be like, wow, am I really about to do this?
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, so that's where, you know, obviously sensitive subject, because I know this is something that's very prevalent, and you know, everybody has their own experience with that. But yeah, it's definitely setting those boundaries, and I feel like guys are actually more accepting than we give them credit for, or they show up more often, like when we give them the space to.
Yeah. And they respect you so much more.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Setting, I feel like I've learned, like in some of my connections, I've been setting some more boundaries, and I've just been really surprised that these guys are just so, they're so, and I why would I expect anything less? Why would I expect anything less than somebody who is going to be so accepting and so, you know, supportive?
Yeah. And if we keep like everyone who we attract are mirrors of ourselves. So we kind of have to
Yeah.
like give them credit to be able to like hold that space for us. But it is up
Exactly.
to us to be confident in like communicating that and like why it's important to us. And you know, even if like you need practice, like talk it out with a girlfriend first, you know what
Yeah.
I mean? Like almost role play. Like if say you're like seeing somebody, or like you're going to start dating, or like whatever the case for you, and you're like, oh my God, like, okay, I'm loving what you girls are saying, but like, how could I have this conversation? Like,
Yeah.
yeah, like do a role play with like your best friend and like talk it out and talk it through, journal it out. And like
Yeah.
this practice of like building this confidence within yourself so that when you are in a position with him, you can communicate in
Yeah. And
an
if you
articulate.
don't have friends, hire a coach, because there's some people who,
Exactly.
yeah, like honestly, hire a coach, because, you know, there's some people who like, I know friends sometimes can just be like, what are you making a big deal of? It's not that big of a deal. You know, you have to be selective with who you're sharing that with. So
Totally.
sometimes, yeah, you know, I'm all for the coaching. I'm all for,
Yeah, like that's what professionals are for, right? Like hire
yeah,
the people, or even like, you know, hire people where they are where you want to be. You know,
yeah,
really what you're doing is like you're paying somebody for access to like streamline information to you to get it faster than you would on your own. You know,
yeah.
that's like a
Mhm.
very valuable investment of your time, of your money, of your energy. Like, yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, so basically wrapping up this episode, all the sex talk. Um
This was so
yeah,
good. This was a lot of like potent information. We like kind of like went through some waves, but
I
we
know
talked
we
about
did.
all the real, these are all the things like you need to consider and tap into and like let yourself explore.
Yeah, and kind of let yourself be open, and even just like what we talked about with the sexual cheat, getting into your own sexual energy, getting really familiar with it and getting really comfortable with it. And then you're going to be able to kind of, like how I have the sex sense, like you're able to kind of pinpoint who your energy is going to mesh with.
Mm.
So that kind of helps with the boundaries thing. But yeah, I feel like we talked about a lot of great stuff during this one. Nice little short but packed episode.
Yeah, totally. So thank you all so much for tuning in. Definitely be sure to like comment, send us some messages about this episode. Like I really want to know how this is like sitting with you, resonating with you. Let us know what you want to hear more about. Kind of what are your boundaries? What are you struggling with? Like we really want to, you know, support you where you are. And yeah, so don't hesitate to reach out because I'd really love to hear.
Totally. Thank you guys so much, and we will see you guys next time. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you so much for listening. Be sure to follow us over on Instagram at Modern Life Mystic Woman, where we're sharing inspirational writing and magical lifestyle tips on the daily.
And if you loved this show, let us know. Subscribe, comment, shoot us a DM, you know, whatever your style, and make sure to share it with all your spiritual besties.
See you next time.